Sometimes thinking it is easier than saying it. Hi everybody, welcome back to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck, and that quote that I just gave you is from a Year 2 student who participated in a maths talk lesson with me recently. And I realized I've never really done a video on this topic. So for those of you that are new to the channel, all the links and everything are going to be below, including some resources to a Google folder that I'm going to share with you, and I'll flip my screen soon and show you all those resources. First, I want to delve into the fact that this is not an area that I'm a proficient expert in. However, this is something that I really love using in the classroom. You might have heard it referred to as maths talks, math talk, number talks, dot talks, and essentially it all comes back to the same thing. We're trying to develop computational fluency. And this comes into, in my system, what we call working mathematically. We're talking about reasoning, problem solving. The biggest thing that comes out of this is communicating, getting our kids to talk about what they're thinking about, and even putting that down on paper and representing it in different ways. And the biggest thing that came out of this recent maths lesson that I did, or this maths talk that I did, was the fact that what's in our heads isn't always easy to translate into paper. And we're missing out on that reciprocity that comes with putting our strategies down in paper, putting it to words, or even putting it into diagrams, images, pictures that represent the way that we think about what we're doing and how we're solving problems. The best thing about this is that it is very open-ended, and it really stems back to you having a classroom environment where kids can openly share what they're thinking and be ready to, or be willing to, take risks and even fail so that they can learn from it. Now, there is so much stuff out there about maths talks, and I highly recommend anything from Joe Bowler. So today I'm going to share a bunch of websites that are great, that have lots of resources that are free and available. Everything that I'm sharing are things that I easily found on Google and that I've benefited from. And I'm sharing with you the lesson plan that I wrote up for this lesson, because I handed it to the teachers that I was doing the demo lesson for, and the resources that I created to do it. And there are so many different ways to do it, and I'm very worried that sometimes teachers are getting pigeonholed into using the same resources over and over again, when really what we want is lots of different resources, lots of different visuals, and most importantly, lots of different mathematical language. So when I started this lesson, I said to the kids, we are putting our mathematician hats on today. We are using our mathematical language. The kids knew that I was filming. So of course, kids always behave much better when you're videoing a lesson, because the students know that I'm learning as well. And they know that I want to improve on my practice. So having that going obviously meant the kids were probably more attentive than what they would have been. However, use that as a tool. Tell the kids, hey, I'm recording my teaching so that I can learn from this, and I want to hear all of your talking. I want to hear your mathematical talk in this lesson so that I can listen and hear what everyone's ideas are. The big thing about maths talks is that it's not meant to be teacher-led. It's meant to get to the point where it's student-driven, student conversation, and they're leading each other. Now, there are lots of things that go with maths talks, like hand symbols. I work in a school that's highly EALD. So for those not in my system, that's English as an additional language or dialect. ESL might be another way that you've heard of it, or LeBoat, language background other than English. All of those factors that come into play, I'm trying to reduce the layers of complexity that come into their language. So adding lots of hand gestures and things like that adds a layer for my kids. So I just stick with the thumbs up if you've got something. And this is to get to the point where the kids are happy to contribute. It builds their confidence to the point where then they can start verbalizing into part of the conversation. Now, all of these things are heavily scaffolded in some of the documents that I'm giving you. What I want to show you today, though, is the lesson that I created so that I could differentiate for the kids in the class. I came across this website that used Lego as a stimulus for the class, and it was just a bunch of four studs Lego that were set together. So obviously the encouragement was to make groups of 4 or 4 plus 4 plus 4, or see all the different patterns that were in there. But I wanted to differentiate that for the class that I was working with. So I did different Lego combinations, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So before I flip over the camera and show you these other things, I want to just reiterate that this is meant to be something that's quick and easy. It's not to be onerous in your classroom. It's meant to be embedded in the practice. So the idea is to spend anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes doing this daily so that the conversation becomes natural and the kids are the ones that are really driving this. Open-ended questions, and there are examples of questions that I will be giving you in the Google folder as well. So let's switch to that folder now and see what I've got in there for you. All right, everyone, this is the Google folder that I will share with you. I've just called it Maths Talks. Like I said, it relates to anything that's sort of titled Number Talks or Dot Talks. That's just specifying it down. And I've put lots of resources in here for you, including the lesson that I ran. So before I get to the lesson, I'll just point out a couple of really good readings. This was a great reading, and this is where it gets into that computational fluency that I was talking about and giving sort of examples of what that could look like and the format that you could run when using Number Talks. There's also some really good, I'm just trying to zoom back out, it doesn't want to. There we go. There are some rubrics in here so that you can look at what kind of dialogue the kids are engaging in. Not just are they talking, but are they listening, and are they engaging in dialogue with their partners or their groups around whether they agree or disagree with those strategies. And you can refine that down by asking them specifically, do you agree or disagree with your partner's strategies? There's some quick start guides in here, some other, visuals that will help you. So I agree or disagree with you because what I heard you say was, can you explain this to me? Those sorts of things, all these posters that are in here. These will be helpful for you. Here's an example of some of the things that might happen when the kids go away and start writing down their strategies. Like I said, visuals, number lines, split strategy, tally marks, those different things. And this can be done kindergarten right through to high school. You can even pull algebra out of this when you really get down to it. I like this dot card number talk here that kind of shows just how you can put those dots on paper and then represent something, and you could circle those groupings or you could draw lines between them. And I like the idea that you can just get really visual, because that's what a lot of kids are missing when they're moving from that concrete to seeing that image in their head. They need that transition to visual beforehand. Here are the hand signs that you'll see on a lot of resources if you go to Google. And like I said, there's the I have the answer. I use that for when I have an idea. I have a strategy. So my lesson plan was never about the answer to the problem. It's all about the talk and the strategy. And that's part of what creates that open and engaging environment where kids feel safe joining in. And that's what I like to create. So this is this orange little strip here. This is the lesson plan that I put together. This is just using a template that my school uses. And my content focus, you'll see, my outcome focus is very much focused on our working mathematically strands. And then my content I'm tying in with number and algebra. So in my description down here about the lesson, I'm specifically putting a script because I really wanted to make sure I worded this properly. And sometimes it's really hard for us to slip into really guiding the kids through that conversation when really we want them to do it. So what do you see? I'm not asking what is the answer. I'm not telling them this problem shows 2 times 3. I'm saying, what can you visualize in your mind? How did you think about that? And this time I want you to focus on the studs, questions like that. So I'm going to try and keep it as open-ended as possible. Then this was, I'm just moving up now because I think I skimmed past it. Where have I put it? My learning intentions and success criteria, which is here. I display this really large. I printed this out on A3 for the kids to see, and I made sure that it had visuals to support those students with additional needs. So our learning intention, we are learning to explore mathematical problems and explain answers. I'm not talking about we are doing multiplication, we're not doing division, we're not doing number lines, that sort of a thing. We're exploring mathematical problems and explaining the answers. And my success criteria, I can describe my thinking using mathematical language, not I saw dots and I saw 6, use my mathematical language. I can listen to others about their strategies. I can describe more than one strategy and justify my ideas. Now this is year 2. I know some of these things sounds like big words, but the more we use this vocab with them, the more the kids will use that vocab as part of their natural fluid language. And this is what they need to be talking like, because we're speaking like mathematicians. So the lesson that I created was around Lego, and I was inspired by a website, here, Minor Math Attack, and it said they're called studs. And this was the lesson that I saw, where they were using this particular prompt for the kids. And these were some of the solutions that the kids came up with to accompany that prompt. Now, it was one prompt for the whole class. So like I said, differentiation is key for me. So I created these ones, and I'm just going to open up my original Word file. So this was the stimulus I had for the class. So you can see automatically it's got 2, 2, 2. Counting by twos, most year 2 students should be able to do this, even the students that might be falling a little bit behind. If kids can't, that's fine. They might count by ones, doesn't matter. Even if they're just at going, hey, I see 3 colors, blue, orange, pink, that's fine. This is what I used with the class. So I put this up. What can you see? What do you think? And I told the kids, when you have one idea in your head, give me a thumbs up. Just one. I said, when you have more than one idea in your head, put your hand up in the air. And I waited to see how they would respond to that. And if I needed prompt questions, I could use them. So then we start to get kids saying, I can see 2 plus 2 plus 2. There are 6 studs. They didn't say studs. I had to prompt them and let them know they're called studs, which I learned from that website as well. And someone would go, oh, I saw 3 plus 3, because they were looking this way. And if I had to explain that because someone on the floor probably looked confused, I could then make that part of my description here that I see. And someone else might talk about how, oh, I saw 4 and then I saw 2, and I know 4 plus 2 is 6. And then you would get from there. And then all of a sudden, as more ideas come out, kids start using languages like arrays. Or someone would say, oh, I know 3 times 2 is 6, 2 lots of 3. Or I know my doubles. And you write everything down. Draw this down, write it down, and see what they come up with. Then what I let the class do is I say, right, you're now going to think, pair, share. You're going to talk to the person next to you about one of these strategies that you agree with. Which one do you agree with? Which one do you think might be the most efficient strategy or the quickest strategy? And you guys talk together. And then you let them have a chat away. And then when they come back to you, you ask them to describe one of those things that they agreed with. And this just gets that conversation going. Now this is what I did remember thinking, knowing that these kids do not have this as part of their practice every day just yet. Then I sent them off to work in small groups, 2s or 3s, and that was decided by the classroom teachers, and gave them different prompts. So this was kind of my lowest prompt, counting by 2s again, but a few more. And then my next prompt was this one. So they could count by 6s, or they could count by 3s, or they could count by 4s if they went down this way. Little bit harder. And purposely in 2 different colors so they could see that there were 2 groups there. Because I want to see if they've automatically gone 2 times 6, or if they're literally using the rows as their support. This will give you so much information to see what they write down first and what comes later after they talk about it and get more ideas from their group. So this one, again, I've got the 2 colors separated, but it's still with these smaller size blocks to see if they're automatically going to count by the 8 that's here. And what was interesting with most groups that did this, they all went like this first of all, which says to me their behaviors, their mathematical behaviors are used to going left to right, top to bottom. Their minds didn't automatically go to the colors first, which was intriguing for me, and also quite happy with myself that I thought ahead, and I did this as well to see if that would make a difference for some of those groups. Those kids also went like this, or they counted across those lines first. They went left, right, top to bottom, which says to me that a teaching point in that class might mean maybe some reversible hundreds charts. maybe some crossing the barriers, that kind of a thing, to build up those other behaviors. Now this one purposely, same color, just to see if those kids would hone in on different patterns. Would they go like this and count the 4s? Would they go across the lines like this? Would they use their columns? Or would they just go this and use multiplication? So this is now getting slightly harder. And this was the hardest one that I had. And the answers that came out of this were amazing. One of the girls that was in this just literally counted across the top, counted across there, and used multiplication. Okay, that's one strategy. Remember, our learning intentions and success criteria says we're using our mathematical thinking, and you have to use more than one strategy. And once you remind them of that, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and they came up with great answers. So some of those examples from that particular group, they literally wrote it out. 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 40. They literally drew the arrays. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but they drew it out for me. Then they did groups of, and they showed me this sort of thing. And then they did those other things as well, like 4 times 10 equals 40. They wrote down 20 plus 20, and they circled those lots as well, and let them scribble all over it, get anything out, all that drawing. And then what we did was we came back together as a group to discuss, except I told them that they would be coming out to show the rest of the class one of the strategies that their partner gave. So I went back to all these sorts of questions, and there's some of them that are on this document here about explaining mathematical thinking, who's responsible for what. So like it says here, you're still leading the discussions, but you're now asking for student input. So I asked the student, come out and tell me one of your partner's strategies. And then I asked them, do you think that was the most effective strategy on your page? Was it the fastest? Was it the easiest? And then they had to explain whether they disagree or whether they agree with it, and just give them that openness. And being able to describe those things and say it is really when you start to see them think, especially when it's about their partner. Did you listen to your partner and how they described it? Do you actually understand what your partner was doing? And there were some great opportunities there where the student would say, oh, they said 4 times 10 equals 40, but I'm not sure why. And that's when we could go, okay, remember our learning intention was we had to listen as well. So the next time we do this, we'll make sure we're listening out for our partner. Now, I've listed some really good websites on here as well that are great for resources. And for example, this page here has lots of stuff down here. Visual patterns, maths talks, number strings, number talk images. So number talk images will take you to the page where this page here, and this is where I found they're called studs. Visual patterns is great. Heaps of resources on here. I mean, you can take the time to make these yourselves, but why do that when there's already heaps there? This is just 1 to 20. So if I click on 41 to 60, when it wants to load, there's more visual representations of those things. And you can literally show the kids this and say, what do you see? Now, when you move into those other areas that's specifically about problems, you might have something that looks more like, sorry, I'll just see if I can find one now. So this one here is talking about this image, and you might ask them how many squares are there. Literally a specific question. How many squares are there? Not just what do you see? Because if I asked what do you see, you could say parallel lines. You could say perpendicular corners. I could say not right angles. I could say red. Lots of different things there. But if you're being specific about it, that's when you're looking at the solution. So me having the Lego and just posing what do you see, I didn't specifically ask how many studs are there, but you can do that if you want to, if that's how you want to start it. So I encourage you to have a look at all of those resources, the websites, because like I said, I'm not the expert. This is just an example of how I did it, and I hope maybe it inspires you to give it a go in your classroom. It's a really good way too to see if those kids have consolidated all of those strategies that they've been working on with you and applying it to something like this and being able to describe it. So hopefully that's all really helpful for you. I really encourage you to go and watch the videos, read all of those different readings that are in there. Look up anything with Joe Bowler, and there are lots of different opportunities for professional learning when we go back to normal for you to partake in. It's a really good way to just create a comfortable learning environment where kids can engage in mathematical thinking, reasoning, and sharing all of their problem solving strategies with each other. And I love the dialogue that comes back and forth when the kids do this. In that lesson, I ended up recording all of the kids that were talking, and I would move the laptop around in the lesson to be able to get them catch that audio. And it was really good to hear them using that language when I wasn't hovering over them. Technically, I guess the laptop is hovering over them, but after a while you get the drift that they're not paying attention to it and they're really doing their own thing. And I really encourage you to do the same thing. Record audio, record video, and look back at yourself, look back at the kids, even if it's just for your own reflection, because you'll get so much from that as well for when you move into your next lesson and be able to pick up on those teaching points. I will leave it there though. So for those of you that are new, I hope you enjoyed this. Thumbs ups are always appreciated. Thumbs ups, multiples, whatever. I will put my button down here in case you want to subscribe. You just hover over that, click to subscribe. Another one of my videos at the top there, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks guys. Bye.